Are you ready?
I am ready.
So this is actually a topic that I think I text you and I said, we got to add this to the list. And that is, we're going to continue this mental health conversation, let's just say.
Mhm.
And that is, so I got my prescription sent in, right? So one of the things about healthcare is when you switch insurance, you have to go into your doctor and get an initial, appointment, talk them into the fact that, this is where I've been for the last 10 years of my life. I've stopped taking my medication on at least 3 occasions now, and all 3 times it has been disastrous for me. So I'm pretty sure maybe I'm just going to be stuck on this. It's citalopram. It's Celexa is what it's called. And I'm like, I'm going to just accept that my chemical imbalance is possibly permanent, and I need to just balance it out. That's all I'm asking. But you still have to go in for an initial doctor's appointment. That takes months to do. Like if I were to call and try and schedule an initial appointment, they're like, yeah, how about September? I'm like, no, thank you. So anyways, I got on a tele appointment with my new insurance.
Nice. Perfect.
Yes, this lovely man prescribed me citalopram and then sent it over to the pharmacy. Yeah, no, pharmacy can't fill it. They need more of this. They need more of that. You got to approve that. And of course, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't know who I am. So he's probably getting 10,000 emails back from 10,000 different pharmacies. And he's like, yeah, no, later. So yeah, I still don't have my medication. And so I hit a rock, like the rock bottom rock earlier this week. And when you're there, you just try and you try and process. And it hit me that depression and happiness are 2 different things. And I think one of the things that people forget that don't go through it is that depression isn't a choice, right? Where happiness is more of a choice because it's not a chemical imbalance, right? It's, well, I'm stuck here talking to you, and I'm just going to be happy about it because I have no choice. That's a choice. Whereas with depression, it's internal, right? It's a chemical imbalance.
Yes, but I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think it is a choice of whether to deal with that depression, right? Like,
yeah.
Right? Like if someone is depressed and they just go, well, I'm depressed, and they don't go see a therapist, they don't try to take a drug, they don't try it, or they just decide not to take their meds. Even if they have them, they're just like, I don't want to take them. That is a choice to you.
Absolutely. I mean, people make that choice. So and it was, the reason I thought of this is because several episodes ago, I told you I was happy, and I told you I was happy with my life as it is right now. And I am happy with my life as it is, but I'm still battling depression.
Right.
And that I can fake up to a point, and I'm really good at faking, is what we've learned about me in life. So I can fake it up to a point, but the happiness is still there. Like I'm really happy with my life. Like, and this is what it's hard to communicate to people, is that depression isn't being unhappy with your life. Your life could be perfect. And as a fine example of that, I mean, there's a long list of quote unquote celebrities that from a distance you look in and you go, they should have been happy. Yeah. Kate Spade, I'm sorry, what was wrong with her life from an external point of view, right? But that's because it wasn't happy or sad. It wasn't an emotion. It was an imbalance.
Anthony Bourdain.
I mean, Robin Williams. I mean, like, the list goes on and on. There's a huge long list. What about, is it Twitch? the dancer from Ellen's show. He was like a
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Well, I mean, and there are people that debate, or there are discussions, and I don't know enough about it, but there's even discussions around people who use drugs, who overdose, and whether they fall into that category, right?
yeah.
Where on the outside looking in, they should be, in theory, super happy, but clearly they're numbing something.
Yeah. And you know what? No, the odds are they might be partially happy because again, happiness
They're
is
so different. Yeah.
right. And that was one thing I wanted to tell you. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, and this was what I found interesting, is I finally was able to like describe the feeling. Now, I do not know if this is true of everybody that is dealing with actual clinical depression, right? But I realize this is very much what happens to me when I am dealing with it. And that is I can still be happy with my life, but I feel that like every breath I take is scrutinized.
Mm.
And it's not, I've been found what's it? And found wanting, right? Like I feel like even breathing I do wrong. And that's an internal thing, it's not external. So it's depression is you lift your head up and you're doing it wrong. Like every step you take, somebody's going to find out that you were wrong. And that is what depression is like. Like every move you make, they'll be watching you. And that's what it's like. So it's separate from just being happy. You know, like I live in a nice little apartment. I have 2 lovely cats. I eat every day. I am warm when it's cold. I am hot. I mean, I'm cool when it's hot. I have a car to drive me around. I mean, I see all those things and I get that I'm happy, right? But but then I feel the depression shows up and it's like, but you don't legitimately deserve any of those things. You should not be having any of those things. You don't even breathe right. So why are you even alive? And that's what it feels like. That's the question that depressed people say to themselves every moment.
Yeah, I can totally relate. When I was severely depressed, that it felt like everything was wrong.
Yeah. And it's not you don't choose that because I can see, I'm like, I go through my gratitude thoughts and I'm like, it's funny. I always say I'm thankful for my car. I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for 2 years with no car. I feel that is a sacrifice. I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
it's crazy. So I'm so thankful I have that car, which is why I take care of it. You know, I get its oil changed and I don't wash it very often, I admit it, but I live in the desert. Water's at a premium. It's one of those, I'm not going to waste water on my car. Sorry, baby girl. But
Totally makes sense.
yeah. But
that's substance versus
yes.
being superficial, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing about depression is, and I can fake a lot, right? And I think that a lot of depressed, and I hate saying that I'm a depressed person because and mostly because medication works on me. So I don't even know if I really qualify, right? Because I read Prozac Nation originally, like when it first came out, and I was like, and this was before I had before I even started taking medication, right before my first prescription, which was Prozac, which I cannot take. But I remember like, well, I'm not depressed because I didn't suffer like this woman did, right? And now I think, well, maybe I'm not depressed because the medication does work on me. It just levels me out where I'm like, well, I'm allowed to breathe like everybody else. I'm allowed to walk down this street like everybody else. Because there are days when I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not allowed. Like breathing not allowed. And those are not good days.
Yeah.
Right. Because
So how do you get through those days? How are you able what have you found that works for you to be able to get to the next day?
I'm a chicken shit. Right? I have 2 cats. I'm not leaving the girls unattended. So, and I haven't found a great way to kill myself yet. I know, and that's not funny. That was a nervous laugh more than anything else, just so you know. I'm like, do I think about it? Of course I do. Yeah, sure. Like, how am I gonna get out of here? And even when nothing is terrible out there, if that's how I feel in here, then that's where my mind goes, is like, just literally, I spend way more time at those moments thinking, how am I going to get out of here, more than I think, what can I do to keep myself to stay? Which is why I am 100% willing to take the medication. 100%. Now I just can't get it, which is, I know it's a separate issue entirely. Now I do have yet another doctor's appointment scheduled for this Friday. And this time, because the tele appointments, I don't even know the name of the doctor, right? I mean, I think he told me, but they don't send me something that said, you saw this guy, which I thought they should do, right? Like, here's who you saw, here's what was prescribed, like a follow-up email of some sort, because then I could contact him and say, hey, the prescription didn't go through, or whatever it is. No, that's not my option at this moment. So this next guy, I'm prepared. Tell me your number. Let me write that down. So, and it was a miracle that I did the first appointment, because I did it when I was like, oh yeah, no, today's the day. I'm not staying. That's how far down I was. And I was like, all right, so I have 2 options here. Maybe I should get the medication. And that's what I tried to do. And I felt a little better, because I thought, oh,
Better just trying to do that, I would
tonight
imagine.
I'm going to have the medication. I actually do have 1 pill left that I've been saving. And then I took it that night, because I was like, this is not working out for me. So, so now I feel a little better. And now I feel better that I have another doctor's appointment already scheduled. I didn't have to wait 6 months. Yeah. So like, let's just get it. But I was like, you know what? A lot of people don't have what I have. And I have a sister who harasses me about getting my prescription. And I get why. So I'm not complaining. I think it's lovely. It's awesome. Then I have a friend that texts me, did you get your medication? And I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to answer to these people. And a lot of people don't even have that. You know what I mean? So it's such a hard thing to communicate.
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing with addiction, right? Like, if you're not addicted to something, and I'm a fine example. And one day we will talk about my addiction, which is another topic that you and I have said we have to go over. Until I walked a mile in those shoes, I didn't get addiction, right? Now I do. Now I understand how you can't stop. Like, it's not just a matter of like, oh, I'm gonna stop. Like smoking, I get why people can't stop. It's an addiction, right?
It's an addiction, and there are chemicals involved. There's physical. There's process. There's so much involved. That's why even it's hard to break habits.
Yeah.
Or even start a new habit. Like, everyone knows they should exercise every day. Everyone knows they should eat fruits and vegetables, but once you've gotten to a routine of like eating pizza and chips and drinking beer, or like any and all of those things, it becomes so much harder.
Yeah. I'm not saying impossible, right?
It's not possible. No.
And I will commend anybody that can do it, but I will not condemn anybody who can't.
Right.
And you know, more power to those people who can pull it off, who can like wake up one day and say, I'm never going to smoke again. And I mean, gosh golly, if I could wake up one day and say, I'm never going to be depressed again, I would.
Of course.
Actually, I do say that every day. I'm like, it's not going to affect me today. Like, I start out going, it's not going to affect me. And I'm like, why is it affecting me? And then I realize it's not like put this in place, drink that, and and everything will be fine. That's
Not
not how
that
it
simple.
works. Yeah,
No.
it's not how it works. Now, interesting enough, um I've been making lists of things that I would like to get done, right?
Mhm.
And I've been doing this all my life. We all make lists. But recently, I've been actually doing those lists. and and I mean, and it's everything. And I admit it, yesterday I would do something and I'm like, oh wait, this isn't on the list. I'd write it down and then I'd cross it off because I did it, right? I still
You
did
want
it.
credit? You want credit for it.
Yeah. And it just helps me like get more and more. And I noticed that I do find a little more peace in my days when I can knock some things off my list. All
Mhm.
right. But it doesn't eliminate the moments where I'm just like, yeah, I don't have a right to be alive anymore. Right. Now, they are fewer and far between. And when I'm on the medication, they're almost non existent. Almost. I mean, I'm sure there's a day or two in there where you're like, oh man, I fucked up.
Frequency is much less.
Yeah. Like once every 2 years as opposed to once every 2 minutes.
Mhm.
So, and that's good. But, there's so many philosophies out there and a lot of magical curing, right? Or, let's manifest our happiness. And I'm not opposed to manifesting if it works for you.
No, 100%.
Yeah, more power to you. It doesn't work for everybody. It is not the only answer. And
And
some,
everyone's different. And we're all snowflakes, right?
yeah,
Like
I like that.
we all have our own uniqueness, and what works with well, for one doesn't work for another. I mean, it's just very complex. And what's even crazier, um, like I remember when I was really battling depression, and as you were talking, I was like, God, I remember those feelings. And like, I remember actually thinking, like, okay, I need to be thankful I have clean air to breathe and fresh water, and I have a great job, and I have friends, and like really trying. And then I would feel worse because I'm like, I
Oh,
do
I
have
do
all
that.
these things, and I'm still
Yeah.
so depressed.
So
And it was
how
like a
did you get out of it?
lots of therapy,
Okay.
lots of therapy.
So you did
And
not go the medication route.
I did not. There was discussion. I did have a therapist who was going to send me to a psychiatrist for a discussion around drugs, and I just really fought it at the time. I was like, I want to give this, but it was years. I mean, but I also, to be fair, I also self-medicated, right? I was drinking every day, and not just having a glass of wine. I mean, I was pretty much drinking myself to death,
Ooh,
like every day, completely intoxicated, waking up every morning and going into work hungover
wow.
and doing that cycle. And I mean, I look back on it and it was a pretty scary, and I was totally in the closet. It's not like I shared that with anyone. No one knew what was really happening.
Because that's what my mind is like. Where the fuck was I? Is my first thought.
Yeah, but when you're in it, again, like it's not something you're proud of. It's not something you want to talk about. There
Yeah.
aren't even words a lot of the time, right? And I felt the same way that I mean, God damn, far from a celebrity, but it's like in terms of the life that I have, I knew people who looked at me would be like, you live in New York City, you have an incredible job, you travel all the time. Like from the outside looking in, everything looked great. But I was literally failing as a human being.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I did not lose my job and I should have is still mind blowing to me.
Right. You know me, I'm going to take issue with the sentence you just said.
Which one?
I was literally failing as a human being. That's how you felt. But
That's how I felt, of course. That's
okay.
how I felt. And I was hanging on like by my fingernails. It's like I was hanging off the side of a cliff, and like my fingernails were all that was keeping me
Yeah.
from falling. And somehow I pulled through, but yeah, it was a lot of therapy. I actually ended up having to take at one point a leave of absence from my job and checked myself into like a rehab facility.
Mhm.
And while I was there, then they were like, you actually need to go to another place. And a 1 week rehabilitation turned into like a month and a half. And it worked. I mean, I won't say it was like a magic pill, it wasn't, but I think actually a huge step was like, I will do anything to get help. And I kind of went to my therapist and said, what do you recommend? I'm open to anything. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to survive if I can't figure this out. And she was like, you need to check yourself into this place in LA, take a week off, go.
Now I remember that, and I remember you telling me it was something else related.
Well, it was in relation to, so the place that she recommended I go was for partners of sex addicts. So
Okay,
it was,
that was okay. Thank you.
uh-huh,
I was like, wait a minute. I
uh-huh,
remember this part of it.
uh-huh. But then from there, they were like, you need to go to this place in Arizona.
Yeah.
And that was all when I went there, it was a program specifically for traumas from the age of basically being born until 18
Okay.
that had nothing to do with my partner.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And,
you two questions.
mhm.
One, did that help? And two, um, what do you think we could do for those people who are not equipped to ask for help?
So your first question, did it help? Yes, but it's not like it helped right away
Yeah.
at all. It was, I think I got a lot of tools, and I think that's really important is even as dumb, for lack of a better word, or childish, some of the tools that therapists give you, like I'll give an example. I had part of my, like they gave me a treatment plan essentially when I left. And one of the things I had, they were like, get a dry erase board or get a dry erase marker, and on your mirror every single morning, write down 5 things. And it was like a gratitude journal, right? But 5 things. And there was a point where it was like, God, and they even said, even if it's the same thing every day, it doesn't matter. Like it literally doesn't matter. And then throughout the day, try to find things you're grateful for so you can remember them the next day. And there was a period like, a couple weeks into it was like, oh my God, this is so dumb. But I kept doing it. It was like exercise. It was like, this feels redundant. I don't know that it's helping, but I think in the long run, it actually did. Or, one of the things that was part of my plan was meditating every day. And not even like I think people hear meditation and they think like this 30 to 45 minute or hour where you're just sitting. And it was like, no, literally take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Even if it's just 2 minutes, start there and just breathe and focus on your breathing. And then other little tools, like if I felt myself stressing out, like just tapping between my eyes, like,
Yes, the tapping method.
yeah,
Yes.
tapping. So I really tried to incorporate those things. And I think over a long period of time, yes, they started to work. For people who can't ask for help, I think that, I mean, if someone can't ask for help, it's going to be rough. Like, I think they're going to have to just maybe do for themselves, try to get back to basics, right? Eating healthy, running, just do those things that we know are inherently good for us. Get 8 hours of sleep. I think sleep is fucking critical. Like, try to avoid alcohol and like all those things that we know. But if you can't ask for help, just do those things for yourself. But I also would say on the other side, if you even have an inkling that someone you know or love is going through it, just checking in.
Right. Agreed.
Just checking in. I don't think it has to be any more than text or a phone call, like thinking of you, how are you? And that's hard too sometimes. Like we all have lives, and all of a sudden like a week goes by and you're like, what the fuck? Or like, but still, even setting reminders, like what's really interesting, one of the tactics that was on my plan, because part of what happens, and I don't know if you go through this, but when you're in those depressive states, you kind of sink into yourself. You don't reach out to people. You start to isolate, the self-isolation. So like part of my plan was I had to block 15 minutes on my calendar every day where I would reach out to someone, not asking for help.
Nope.
15 minutes a day where it was like, just make a phone call to someone just to check in, or I had to make that effort.
Yeah.
And it was fucking hard. Like, it sounds like it should be so easy.
So I haven't graduated to that yet. Like, if I'm in the throes of it, I'm shutting down from other people. However, the flip side of that for me is, I don't know if this works, but I do it anyway, is I go to my list of people and say, who's been really quiet, right? Who have I not heard? Like, who stopped posting on their social media? Who stopped email, whatever it is, and that's the person I call, because I'm like, uh-oh, they might be going through what I'm going. So, and I don't call them and say, oh, I'm depressed. Are you depressed? I'm like, hey, what's going on in your life?
How are you? Yeah, just checking in. Yeah.
Taking it, I try and take myself out of the equation. I mean, I can be at the lowest of my lows, and I will take the time to do that, because I feel that's like the the dopamine, like that's the positive part of the chemical, and I'm trying to stack the odds in my favor. But I think that part of it, it helps me to look at oh, look, there's something going on in this person's, like, and that's why I have a love relationship with social media. I know a lot of people don't like it. I like paying attention to what people are doing, and like some people's posts are like, when they're crazy and cryptic, I'm like, gonna call that person. I'm gonna call them and say hello, see what's going on, tell them I missed them. Because I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good in that sense. I feel for people that cannot ask for help. It took me a long time. I'm not even sure I asked for help initially. I think someone forced me into it, if I'm not mistaken. But once I got forced into it, and I the light in the tunnel was like hitting me in the face. Now I like that light. I really do, right? Like, I would much rather not be depressed, given the choice.
No, I mean, I think that there's a certain level, I will say, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but maybe not, is the toxic positivity. Like the man that I'm dating right now, even like last night we were on the phone and he said something about, I'm not going to say it verbatim word for word, but he said something about, you don't always have to be super happy with me. Like, you can show your vulnerable side. And I was legitimately like, you know what? I am genuinely happy. Like, I'm not being toxically like, you'll know if I'm having a bad day. It's not like I hide it or I try to cover it up anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're not that often. But I was like, for me personally, like, I know I'm going to have a sad day here or there. I know I'm going to have a stressful day here and there. It's when it's back to back to back, where it's like, that is a red flag. And I try to choose not to have those days, or try to, like your text the other day, right? It's like, I did something that brought me joy. I got sushi. It brought me joy. And
it does.
And you got to do those things. Like,
yeah. And we should be looking for those things. And you know what? I'm going to use this as a platform for this philosophy that I have, which is, honestly, I don't care what political affiliation you are. I don't care what religious affiliation. I don't care what sexual, I don't care about any of those. Have care and compassion for your fellow man.
100%.
Care about the person next to you. And if that's as far as it goes, that's okay, because then that person will care about the person next to them. I'd like to see that care spread out, but let's start small. Like, across this the way from me, like, once a week I feed my neighbors across the way, because I like them and they're lovely people, and it's fun, and it feeds my soul.
Yeah.
and they get to have dinner with me. They're so lucky. But that's just one
It-
little, right? It's a blessing.
I don't remember. I mean, the last time I had dinner with you, it was like we were at SLS and we had burgers, and it was
Yes.
like 3 years ago.
Yes, but someone else was with us. Yeah.
I,
So, and actually, yeah, oh, yeah. Anyways, but I mean, that's just right across the way, right? And the woman upstairs, she needs a car to take her driving test because she does not have a car, but she wants a driver's license. So I let her use my car. I'm like, it's just a car. And it's a gift that I have it, so I will gift it to other people, right? So, and it's these little things where I'm like, really, if what I believe is to care about your fellow man, because I am a fellow man. I want someone to care about me, right? If no one cares about me, then I really don't have a reason to be alive. None. So that's kind of how I approach it. But you know what? There's got to be someone in your life that you care about. So reach out to them, because depression isn't a choice.
it's not a choice. It is absolutely not a choice. It doesn't discriminate.
Yep.
You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be Black, you can be Mexican, you can be white, you can be a
Yep.
woman, man, trans. It impacts across the board.
Yeah.
And we have really shitty mental health plans in the United States.
Yes.
And hopefully that will change. I feel like there's more talk around it now, and more insurance plans cover it. And
yes. And wouldn't that be fabulous? And it's funny. I'm not naming any names here, but I do know that there is a segment of the population that believes it is a choice and you can just get over it.
well,
And I'm like, what did you say?
I said, well, they're fuckers,
Yeah.
and totally wrong, and
Yeah.
probably also believe that women should have a dress code.
Yeah, seriously. So all of this to say, then the final thing that I think we should make out there, other than, if you're enjoying this conversation, then please subscribe, because it helps us, and helping us will help you. Is if you are suffering from depression, it is okay to do something about it, right? You are allowed, and you deserve it. Because that's one of the things about depression is, like I said, it's like you don't feel like you have the right to breathe, but you do.
Mhm.
And seek help, for sure. Can you say something more intelligent than that, please, Freedom? I need you desperately right now.
No, I definitely can't say anything more intelligent than that. But
Please.
I would say this. I feel like your mental health, especially for folks that maybe don't want to ask for help or like really struggle in deciding, it's like, well, if you are running and fall and have a gushing wound, are you going to just go home and try to wrap it yourself, or are you going to go to the urgent care and get it fixed, right? Like, I think some people still have a hard time recognizing that mental health is a part of your physical health.
Mhm.
So the same folks that will go to the gym every day and get a trainer, it's not any different than getting a therapist. A
Right.
trainer and therapist are exactly the same in just different parts of your life.
Absolutely. And I'm all for therapy. As a matter of fact, I have been to a therapist before, and I loved my therapist.
Well, and it's expensive, right? So it's like, even if you maybe can't afford a therapist, there's so many groups that you can meet. Sometimes it's just trying to find your people and like a community. And like, I found a group, and I was so sad when I moved and I sold my car because it was in a part of New York that wasn't really easy to access. And it was, what is the group? Al-Anon. It was an Al-Anon group, and they were wonderful. And it was free.
Mhm.
It was every Tuesday night. I had people's phone numbers. It was such a supportive, beautiful group of people. And I went to I remember my therapist at the time saying, go to 10 to 12 different meetings, because you can't just go to one and think like, It's not for me.
Right.
Every dynamic is different. And she's like, and go to different types, right? Like I went to, because she's like, Al-Anon, for example, she's like, you're going to find people who are there who have partners or children that are addicts of other things. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the addiction is or alcohol. You're all in the same boat of loving someone who is an addict. Like don't let the not initials. What is the word I'm looking for? I feel like I'm having the worst brain fart.
Well, it is the initials, ALAN, right?
Yeah. Like,
or AAA.
Exactly. Whatever it is, like, don't let that get in your way of trying.
Right. Agreed. It's funny because I went to several different addiction meetings in Phoenix, as a matter of fact, and I kept having to move around because I wasn't fitting into any of them at all, as a matter of fact, and ended up creating my own in the end that actually did help me, but took the principles. But I'm like, and I kind of like the idea of it, having any sort of meeting is just a way to connect with people, find whatever that is. That's why I like Meetup. I love Meetup. I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant concept.
It's literally just finding outlets.
Yeah. One thing I did want to say is I just realized something, because I'm sure you remember this. I totally remember this.
I totally forgot about that.
So you know what? That says a lot, Freedom. That says a lot about you as a friend, by the way. I think you're a good friend. Now I'm thinking, well, fuck, man, you are a phenomenal friend. Now that I think about it, you're wow, you're amazing.
And what would you like me to say?
If you enjoy this show, you know what? So side note, I've been listening to Diary of a CEO because it's fascinating.
I'm gonna write this
It's a YouTube channel, but you don't have to watch it, but I listen to it while I'm at work. And the guy is a sharp kid, sharp kid. And he interviews a lot of people that have stuff going on in their lives. So it's lovely. But in his intro, he switches out and he just stares at the camera and he says, do me a favor. If you like this show, please subscribe. Although he says it with this wonderful British accent because he's a British boy. And I was like, at first I was like, everybody says subscribe. And then I realized, okay, here's what subscribing does for us, right? If you subscribe to the channel, that helps YouTube identify us as something that might be worth listening to, and then passes it along to other people. It seems shallow and superficial at first. Like the subscribe mantra is like got irritating. But when I understood that what it helps us do is, like, we do this for a reason. I'm doing it for a reason, right? One is, if I can just come alongside one person that is dealing with any one of these topics that we struggle with ourselves, and they go, wow, that's a different way to look at it, or wow, that sounds great, or gosh, I'm going to do that from now on, then we've done something good, and I want to do something good.
I totally agree. I know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Can I do it? Okay. So if you have a show idea or would like to comment on any part of these segments, feel free to comment below, or you can email us at showertalks, TALKSUS, @gmail.com. And please subscribe.